Hi, everyone. We'll just wait for a few minutes until everyone joins in the meeting, and we'll promptly start. Okay, it's 3 minutes past 2, so I think we might start. In the meantime, others will be joining. So hello, everyone, and welcome to our JBR Engage workshop today. Just as a quick introduction, we are the Global Biotech Revolution nonprofit organization who aims to inspire the next generation of biotech leaders. And today's event is the second webinar series and the first workshop from our new exciting initiative, the Virtual Academy program, which is called the Flavors of Scientific Leadership. And we have planned 4 more upcoming career-focused events throughout the year from this program. So please keep an eye out for them in our social media channels. And for those who actually are able to attend all of our events, we'll also put up recordings on our YouTube channel where you can catch up on them. But for all of those who are able to attend all of our events, we will reward you with a certificate of attendance at the end of the program. So moving on with our workshop event for today, which will focus on the transitioning from academia to industry. I'm very pleased to introduce our wonderful speaker today, Hannah Thompson. Hannah is a scientist by training Hannah is a scientist by training who transitioned into biotech startups to work on monitoring health, enabling precision medicine, and also clinical trials in various roles. And she is currently a senior product manager at Sanogenetics. So without further ado, I will hand over to Hannah, who can introduce herself as well and begin the workshop. Hannah, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thanks, Diana. Nice to meet you all. I'm very excited to be chatting with you today. I'm going to get stuck in and tell you a bit about me. But first, I want to know a bit more about you guys. So tell me a little bit, why are you guys here? What questions, concerns do you have? What are you hoping to learn today? Type anything in the chat or come off mute, and let's just see what brings us all together today, basically, and get us warmed up a little bit. So any burning questions people had about moving from academia into industry, anything they were hoping to learn from? Why are you spending an hour with me today? Okay. Got a venture capital person who wants to be in venture capital. Nice to meet you, Joshan and Blanca. Amazing. Anyone else got any? You must have reasons for being here unless you're trying to avoid work or anything. Yeah. Amazing. I know some of you will be in the lab and things. That's great. All right. You'll get more out of this, guys, if you're going to interact and chat to each other so we can learn from each other. So do try your best to think of, be active and aware of the things that are coming up when I'm chatting. Thanks for the question about best time to transition. We'll cover that at the very end. That's awesome. Alrighty, so a little bit more about me. Like Diana said, I was a scientist myself, so I did a master's in pharmacology, a year in industry at AstraZeneca, and a PhD in tumor biology. So I'm potentially very much like most of you, probably on this journey in some shape or form. And we all kind of know the reality of being a scientist, which I'm guessing is why some of you are here, right? You guys, most scientists, have started their career to help people. You usually, though, when you're working in the lab or trying to learn how to be a scientist, you're very, very focused on like a single protein, a drug, or a pathway or something like that. You're going to be spending a lot of time working on your own, thinking deeply about those problems, designing experiments in detail, and the work can be super slow, sometimes unrewarding, especially when your results might be negative, even though that's like super useful information, right? You can sometimes wait years to be sharing your work with the world, and perfectionism can start to creep in. And I've heard from lots of people like you who I chat to and I mentor that the academic system leaves you working long hours, doing lots of extra work for free, like reviewing papers and battling for money to keep yourself in a job. And lots of people feel that, especially, this is my story as well, right? That as you spend more time in academia, the reality of making an impact on others feels further and further away. But the desire for you to help people never leaves you. So that makes you frustrated with what you're doing with your time, and you start to fall out of love with being a scientist. And that's certainly how I felt at the end of my PhD. And other problems begin to occur, like you feel like there's no place for you outside of academia, that people in the environment around you make you feel like you've got no way to transition away from academia. You don't even know what jobs you can find or how to find them. And when you do find job adverts, they're a bit in funny language. You don't really understand what they mean or how to apply for that job. And the reason I'm here today is to tell you that none of that is your fault. There is a space for scientists outside of academia, and you can lead yourself out of this situation. So hopefully you guys, maybe from the chat, you can see that lots of people have the same kinds of questions, as well as yourself, and you're not alone in this kind of wanting to move away. It's a lot of people that I speak to have the same feelings and the concerns. But as an example, there are lots of people who I'm connected with and who I mentor that have made this transition. And one example, I guess, is myself. I'll talk about some other people later on. But as Diana said, I have played a part in lots of different biotech startups in different roles, in different skills. First of all, I was a first employee at something called Cambridge Cancer Genomics. I started off as a contractor and then made my way into the executive team. That was very early on, straight after my PhD. I taught myself lots of things. And yeah, it's very exciting. And since then, I've worked across product, business, and people kind of roles in biotech. And the other reason why I'm excited to be sharing some more things with you today is that I've been involved in hiring people in a lot of these roles. So I know exactly what it is like from the other side of the table, as well as being a scientist trying to move out. I know what I'm looking for when I'm hiring people. So I also run a mentorship scheme specifically for this purpose. So people who want to get a job outside of academia, it's called Go Potato. So I have lots of experience of helping people like you. And I know now that I've had a few years in my career, I know the reality. Like, as you can see, I've moved through different positions. It's not going to be a perfect, smooth ride. You'll need to learn and reflect on what you're enjoying and what you're doing. But I think the underlying reality, the real difference between science and a career outside of academia is most of the time you'll be working with other people more than you have as a scientist. Which means, for me, my opinion is that one of the best ways to go about this transition is to become like a master in your self-management. So really leading yourself and understanding what you enjoy and what you don't like, reflecting really often. And that's basically what we're going to start practicing today, which is exciting. I was going to pause here in case anyone had any questions. They want to know a bit more about my background. Is there anything that comes top of mind or anything that you guys still want to know about me? Just going to catch up on the comments while you guys think if there's anything that's brought up for you. Okay, excited to meet you all. Thanks for those who have popped stuff in the chat already. So, finding your next step. There's going to be a series of kind of reflection questions here. It's going to feel maybe a little bit basic, and that's because it's not rocket science. It's really simple. To learn more about yourself, it's about carving out that time to plan, reflect, and read and talk to other people. Obviously, at certain points in your academic career, you might have different time pressures on you. You might be writing up your PhD, you might be working really hard on a paper, you might have some other deadline, which will make it harder to find space for your kind of career work. There's never a perfect balance. You're always rebalancing. That's what I've learned a lot about over my journey. The first step and my advice, strong advice, if you only remember one thing from today, is to repeatedly and regularly slow down and reflect how you are spending your time in relation to the career goals that you have. And remember that you have a lot of people around you that might have already made that transition that you can talk to, and I'll show you a bit more about that as we go through the next steps. But remember, as well, that scientists around you love helping. Nothing bad ever comes from asking for help as well. So there's lots of people here in your network already that will help you do this. So these are the questions that I have asked myself over the last few years, and I ask them every 6 months because I'm carving out that time to do this regularly. So it's really simple. I want us to perhaps join along while we're doing this, because we have a bit of time to do it, where we can ask ourselves, what do I like and dislike doing? And this can be like very, very granular. So the kinds of people that you interact with, the tasks that you do every day, what excites you when you get up in the morning. Is it going into the lab? Is it spending some time on your own thinking deeply about a problem? And as I'm going to give us like 2 to 3 minutes to think about this on our own, and then I'd love, when things come up, for you to type them in the chat as well if you can, or come off mute and chat with us. Dislike writing manuscripts, a good one for me as well, exactly the same. All right, I'll give you till 19 minutes past to have a quick reflect. All right, does anyone else have anything they want to add? Anything that's obvious now you think back? So I have actually reflected all the way back to my childhood when I was 15-year-old. I used to work in a baguette shop, and I loved chatting with the customers even from then, and that's been a theme throughout all of my the jobs that I've done. I've really enjoyed interacting with people, and it's always good just to reflect and settle back on to those things, because I presume most of you want to enjoy doing the job that you're going to be doing next, which is really important for me anyway. So yeah, lots of stuff here, which is awesome. I have a spreadsheet that I keep a track of every 6 months and reflect on these things. I also hate cell culture too, but I do miss chatting with people in the lab, actually, when I do that. So I keep a record of it, and you can see the trends over time, and these things will change as you learn more about yourself and you learn more about different kinds of people and spend a bit more time working. It's quite a good example, actually. Joanna asked, why did I leave Sano and come back again? So the role that I did at Sano, first of all, was setting up a long COVID research study. Once I'd done that and spent a lot of time talking to lots of academic partners in a very slow and frustrating way for me, I didn't feel like there was enough challenge or things that were fast-paced enough for me left to do at Sano at that point in time. So I left and went to another startup that was expanding much more rapidly than Sano was. But I always kept in touch with the Sano team because I really liked their leadership style. And when I knew that the company I'd moved to was making people redundant, I jumped back into Sano because I knew that at that point Sano were growing and expanding and doing more things in products that I know that I like doing. And I wouldn't have had to wait 2 years to talk to more academics and really get annoyed, basically. And it's as simple as that. I used that simple reflection to make sure I knew that I was in the right role at the right time. So yeah, really, really basic, but really good one to start. So thank you for joining in and doing that with me. Make sure you keep a note of these for your records outside of it, but there could be a lot of things, other things that you can think of as well over time as you talk to it. So some things for me, other things are like, I love brainstorming ideas, finishing small tasks, talking to patients, storytelling. I don't like writing long documents or waiting for other people to do things, which has always been a theme throughout the roles I do. And every time I reflect on that, it helps me to do more of the stuff that I like. And slowly over my career, I've moved into things that are much more like a larger variety of the things that I do are things that I like doing. And I'm moving away from the things that I don't like doing, which is all you can ask for. Is kind of experimenting and iterating, keeping that scientific mindset. The next thing to do for 2 minutes is to think about all of those things that you do like doing. What are the core skills that are related to those things that you might find on job adverts? So for example, I'll give you the things that I like doing are like thinking creatively, having empathy, being quite action orientated, and speaking confidently in groups. They all kind of relate to the finishing those things. So I'm action orientated, talking to patients, I can speak confidently in groups, things like that. So just getting a little bit more detail into those things that you've thought about what you like and don't like. Let's focus on things you like. And if you can pick out any more detail to do with that. So people who've put like teamwork down, what is it about those teams? Do you like, speaking to them? Do you like writing emails to them? Pull out all of that extra detail that you have that will build out your skill set that you want to be looking to match to a role. So I'm going to give you 2 more minutes till 26 minutes past to see if you can think about it a little bit deeper. It might be hard at such short notice, but have a go. Okay. Did anyone get anything else out of that one? Was it a bit more difficult? Anything that you can add in the chat to build on your things that you like doing? Or was there a reason why you found it difficult? If you did find it difficult, let me know.
Hey, Hannah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I thought it might be easier to talk. Is that okay?
Yeah, go for it.
I was just thinking about the teamwork aspect that I quite like. And I've put that speaking to people generally comes naturally to me. I think I'm a supportive teammate and I'm proactive in like helping people when I can see that some part of the teamwork is needing maybe more time. Like I think I can spot those and take those opportunities. So I think that that's a good skill to have. I think I'm good at asking questions, which is good for teamwork as well.
Yeah.
And I think I'm also good at synergizing ideas. So like when brainstorming in a team, I think I'm a useful person to have. So that's what I've put down.
Great, thank you for sharing. Does anyone else want to add anything from their one? Alrighty. So the reason I'm asking these questions is it is building a story about yourself that you can go out and share. And you have these practice little snippets of things that you like doing and why you like doing them. And when you're talking about things that you like, you often light up and you bring more energy to the conversation. So it's a good place to focus any networking conversations that you might have, as we will go through some of the next things. And you'll see that these reflections will really help you to understand, where to start in a conversation. Basically, you can start with by saying, hey, I like doing these things. What do you think I can do? Which is kind of what this question is asking. So does anyone know now? Has it become a bit clearer what kind of job you might enjoy doing based on the things that you like doing, the things that you already know that you're good at? How would you go about answering what job will allow me to use the skills that I like using? Does anyone have any ideas about how you'd find that out? Or any thoughts about jobs that have come up from your reflections or things in the past? Obviously, you guys have been thinking about this for a while. Or is this something that you find much more difficult? Is this where it gets tricky? Let me know. Nice. Project manager is a really solid choice for a next step in general. And yeah, a lot of people want to get to that consultant level or like product manager straight away. And there's often some stepping stones in between. So yeah, don't try and think of it as getting to your end goal super soon. Where could you go with those things that you like doing? Anyone else wanted to share?
I find it quite difficult to answer that question, actually.
Yeah. Okay.
I think for me, I don't know, I find whenever I read job descriptions, I still don't quite get
totally
what percentage of that job would be what I like doing. And like, it's hard when you haven't been there before, you know?
Yeah. So some of these things that I chat to the people I mentor about are the ways that you can find out the answer to this question is to ask other people that you might know what they actually do in their day-to-day role. Like the job description can often be quite high level and sometimes not realistic. So asking people exactly what they're doing, what tasks they're doing, ask them to show you their calendar and their meetings that they have, who are they interacting with. Lots of scientists think about project management, data science, partnerships, that kind of thing as an initial first choice, but there are loads and loads of things that you can do. And this, is exactly, I put this question in because I think people find it really, really difficult, and that is to show you that you're not alone. I think this is a really tough one to bridge your story into your, the networking side of things now. And once you've found your job, there may be questions around like, what other skills might you need to develop? So like Katia said, she's not really sure the percentage of things that she'd actually enjoy from the job description. You might also not be sure the percentage of things you can actually do on those job descriptions. So my advice in general is to go for roles where you have 50% of the skills, and that's okay. You don't need to have 100% of them, but you just need to have a story about how you can learn the rest of them. So some things that you might want to try when you've spoken to people in different kinds of roles and heard about what they like and what they dislike, and seen if that matches up with what you like and what you dislike. You can think about, ask them, can I talk to you about what other things that you do and what skills that I might be missing? And they might be like how to write a blog, for example, how to present to customers, how to balance priorities. All of these things are a little bit different to what a scientist normally does. But this is helping you basically to build a plan and something that helps move you closer to the job that you are interested in, and helps you be really transparent and honest in those job interviews and chats with people. And I think the real crux of this whole reflection process is to put into place, like I said, this plan of how to learn exactly what things you might need to do to get those jobs that you're interested in. So the blue things are still things that you can do with like networking, and the green things are things like actions that you can do. So my advice to lots of people is to take your list of liking and disliking and see what other things you can do that you will enjoy, that will add some experience to your CV, basically. There's lots of opportunities to do this while you're a scientist, and it helps you to do those things for a few months if you're early on in the kind of career finding process, and reflect on what you enjoyed and what you didn't enjoy. So some examples are getting involved in internship things. Lots of PhDs have those as part of their process, where you can intern for different companies. You can take on more responsibility. So for example, in the lab, I did all the budgets and things like that. And I also, did all the ordering of the lab equipment, and I learned lots of things based on that. You can take a stepping stone role. So like I said, the project manager position could be an important stepping stone for you to learn more, get some confidence, figure out exactly what you might like to do, and then move on to a consultant after that. You could go on a specific course. So there's loads of things that you can do as a scientist, especially in universities. I really miss having that list of things that I can get involved with for free. You can also create like a side project with friends. So if you like, let's meeting and talking to people, for example, why don't you set up a podcast where you interview people or something like that, and just showing off that that is a real strength of yours and building up more evidence towards that. You might even meet people who will give you jobs doing these little side projects. And that just helps you learn more and reflect about yourself, basically. Does anyone have any other thoughts on this one that they wanted to share, that they've used in the past, that everyone else can incorporate? Has anyone learned a new skill recently or tried to make their strength stronger? As a person that hires people, I love seeing these little side projects and things that people are doing that are managing their own growth and reflection. So sometimes it might be really silly, like being in a cover band, or something, but they do really show you as a rounded individual and building out your own kind of personality and how you interact with the world. It's really fun to see those kinds of things come through in job applications. Okay. So another important question that I think makes sense to ask yourself in this journey every 6 months or so is, if you find a role that you're interested in, does it make sense for you right now? And there's lots of reasons why it might not make sense. But what we're doing as we're coming through all of these questions is basically building a story. So you like these things, you don't like these things, you want to do more of the things that you like. And these are the skills that you have that come with those things that give you energy and the will to work, the motivation to do a job that you like. And then there's obviously the stepping stone approach. So what skills do I need to learn next? So you want to take the things that you're really good at and you enjoy and learn some other things alongside that. And then take that along, and slowly you'll get more and more things that you enjoy and you're good at, and you can take that forward in a confident way. And that becomes your story of what you can add, what you can bring, and what you can add value to a company. Some steps that you take might not be like 100% perfect, right? And I don't think they ever are. Whenever I take a new role, there's things that I know I'm not going to enjoy as much, but it's still useful exposure to different kinds of teams, different kinds of people, maybe even a different industry to what you're used to. I always make great connections each time that I join a new team. I love to make friends with as many people as possible, because those people in that company are going to go on to join other companies in the future. And that will allow you to open even more doors for yourself in the next 3 to 10 years, right? If you're going to impress people in the first job that you do, you're going to have people who want to work with you for the rest of your career. And that's exactly how I've moved through each of my jobs. I've only applied for one job out of the 5 that I had, because everyone knew me already and knew that, yeah, I had a strong skill set, because I was telling people all the time about what I was good at and what I liked doing. So people knew to call me when they had specific jobs open and available. I'm really a big believer in this. I'll find out if I like it by doing it. Definitely, if you're not sure about a role, and you can still kind of ask questions about it, you can get maybe an internship or even a starting role in there, and you can find out if you like it or not. And it doesn't matter if you don't like it. It's actually really important to know what you don't like right now. And as long as you take that kind of experimental approach, right, that you've learned as a scientist, you find out, you can have a hypothesis. I might like being a project manager, or whatever the null hypothesis of that is. And you can test out that by reflecting every so often. Use yourself as an experiment and to learn with. The things where I would avoid people going to jobs, obviously it's related to money and psychological safety. So if there are any silly red flags that you wouldn't feel safe in that place, or it's not going to, you're not going to be able to financially support yourself, then that's obviously not going to be a good choice. What I'm trying to encourage you to do is have this experimental mindset and try things out and not worry about being 100% fit for the role. The story that you have about yourself will be very important and will take you through a long way. I think that section was all about being active, experimenting and leading yourself. And that's the real mindset shift that I want you to work on as much as you can on this journey. It's going to be really important once you've got a job as well. Managers are really, really busy. My manager doesn't have time to manage my career as well as his career. So as long as you take this approach and start practicing it now, it's going to pay dividends throughout the entire next 30, 50 years of your life. It's you that's in charge of yourself, and you can help yourself by, reflecting and networking and learning. So there are so many other questions that you can ask yourself in this kind of self-reflection process. what kind of people do you like working with? Do you want to work remotely? What size company should you work for? What company missions excite you the most? What are you going to learn about yourself? Who do you know that's moved from academia to industry? I'm connected to like 4,000 people, I think, on LinkedIn now. So I know loads of people that I could connect you guys with. If you all wanted to connect on LinkedIn, we can figure out who you can chat to, and everyone is very friendly. That's the reason why LinkedIn exists, is to connect with people. Yeah, more things around boundaries, interactions, the values that you have. That's really important to start reflecting on in your journey, and frequently, because they do change. So that section all about reflection. Is there any questions that you have? It's probably quite a whistle-stop tour, of course. We don't have much time today, but hopefully you get the message around reflecting often. Is there anything anyone wants to ask, though? Feel free to pop it in the chat. If not, we can spend 1 minute adding me on LinkedIn, or pasting in your LinkedIn things as well, so we can all connect and help each other.
Hey, Hannah, can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
How do you approach balancing out like what skills you're good at and what your values are? Because if like sometimes maybe like something aligns much more with your values, but you don't have the right skill set for the role, like do you like, I mean, obviously this is going to be personal for different people, but for you, how has it been so far? And do you have any advice on that?
Yeah, so I think I am a little bit, from my experience, because I've worked in startups, they're generally looking for people who are very passionate about the mission and the values that line up. So whenever I found a company that I like and the values match, I've been able to have a broader kind of role that isn't as specific. So that's allowed me to join companies and migrate into roles and build my own role, basically by showing that I have my own story, I have the values, and they match up nicely. I think it's worth experimenting with whether it's more draining for you to work in a company that doesn't have the same values as you, but uses your strengths, or pushing yourself out of your comfort zone and working for a company that you really matches up with your values, but might not have all of your strengths related to it. But I suppose where you're coming from it is applying to that. Is that right? Or am I?
Yeah. No, you're, yeah, that's basically what I was wondering, because obviously it's very easy to stay more adjacent to the field that you did your PhD in and being like, oh, like I can definitely like in an interview come across more confident. But if you're interested in something completely else, it's just like balancing those out. So that answers my question. Thank you.
Yeah, I think my general advice is always to, when you're starting off, right, it feels a bit more like a numbers game. So you're going to be applying for a variety of things often, and you're going to notice which ones are draining your energy and which ones are exciting you. And then you can start going for the things that excite you more, and they're probably likely going to be the ones that line up with your values. If there is one that lines up with your values but doesn't have a position available for you now, I would always advise to make friends with people in the company anyway, and keep an eye on what's happening. Because you never know, that might be your company after the one after the next, for example. It's always good to have a list of those ones that really excite you and line up with your values. But don't waste time on applying for things that are draining you or don't align massively, because you'll be able to tell in the interview process. I can see that people aren't like excited. It's not a right fit. It's probably going to be a bit of a waste of time for both sides. But you can experiment, see how you feel. Like you said, it'd be quite personal often. Cool. So I was just going to go through some case studies that people I've worked with in the past. But I was thinking I'll show you a little trick first that lots of people like. on LinkedIn. If you're not on LinkedIn, you should be. I know it's hard, feels a bit weird, but what I like to do is to go to my own profile and go down to the places that I studied. Basically, there's always thousands of people who've worked or who have gone through the university, and you can click on the alumni section here, and you can see for my place that I did my PhD, there's loads of people who studied there and they're on LinkedIn, and you can type in potential roles that you might be interested in, and you can find people who have transitioned to these roles, for example, and they might have done very similar degrees to you, for example. So a little bit of stalking can help you find some like inspiration, essentially. And you can see that Roxana was a quality control analyst. That might be something that you then want to look into. She then went to be an analytical scientist and now is a project manager and is still in project management. So that can give you some inspiration for what things you might be interested in. You can look in her details and see, oh, she provides training. Do I like that? Is that on my list of likes or not? And then you can connect with her, add a little message. Whenever it says add a note, I would say something like, hey, would love to chat more about how you transitioned from scientist undergrad to a project manager. And because you have potentially more things in common, they're more likely to accept your request. And you can do that loads of different things, even some different kinds of skills as well that you can search here. So that's a nice handy little tip. But for now, I wanted to share some more inspiration from people that I've worked with in the next 5 minutes. So I've worked with my friend called Sammy. So she did a PhD in health and well-being. She did a postdoc, and now she works in research communications at Blood Cancer UK. And as we built this story for her, I'm going to explain it. So Sammy likes writing and talking about well-being research. And she really liked publishing papers and speaking at conferences. And we found through talking to a variety of people on LinkedIn and honing, basically getting Sammy to talk to people and feeling how she felt afterwards, after talking to them, whether she was like drained or really excited about what they were doing. And she was most excited about research communications because that would be related to publishing papers and speaking at conferences and writing about research. And she was also excited about comms in general and product research in mental health startups because that's her area of passion. But she knew that she wanted to expand her skill set because research communications outside of academia involves lots of different media items, so blog writing, social media. So she decided to write her own blogs, read about social media because she was asked about it in the interview and she smashed that question despite having never worked in a social media role before. But she was prepared because she knew that that was one of the gaps that she had, but she could prove that she was able to learn and grow into that role, and that was what was most important. And despite this Blood Cancer UK role not being in her area of interest, it was made sense for her now because she wanted to learn about research comms in general outside of academia because that was related to what she likes doing. So she's hoping in her next step that she can go into research comms back into mental health and well-being because she'll have proven that she can do that, and she will have reflected and learnt exactly the things that she knows she enjoys doing. She's reinforced that she knows she likes doing that in the world outside of academia as well. So as you can see, these questions immediately form quite a nice succinct story that she can tell in 2-minute intro to somebody in an interview or in a LinkedIn kind of intro chat. So that just hopefully reinforces how important it is to have thought about this and said it out loud to a lot of people to see how it makes you feel. The second case study I wanted to share with you is Isaac. So he did PhD in psychology, postdoc for 8 years after that. And just this week, he started a job at the Financial Conduct Authority. And who would have thought that a scientist would work in finance? But it turns out that they have a behavioral insights team. And what Isaac really liked doing was analysing survey and questionnaire data, understanding people's behaviour and the statistics related to that. He had 12 years of research on these kinds of examples. And he actually, since he got the job at the Financial Conduct Authority, told me that he used to read their surveys that they did about the behavior of how people spend money, different things like that. And he used to read those every year. So when he saw this job come up, as we'd been talking to more behavioral scientists, I could identify that that's what he liked doing. He could have been a data scientist, could have been something like a product owner, because these are all very similar skills that you would use, but we had to find that out by talking to different people, getting Isaac to interact with them and see how excited he was or not about what they were doing. These bits I actually haven't changed. These are the same as Sammy's ones, but he basically needed to learn how to speak about himself a bit better to tell this story, so that he could do well in those interviews. And that's what we did together. I helped him to practice something, some preparation for different conversations. So grabbing a friend who can do that with you is always really important. And the reason that Isaac did this role next was because he was having a second child basically, and he needed some more money. And this was a really well-paid job and in an area that he really enjoyed. So he's going to experiment with it and see if he likes it, and learn from that. We obviously also have Diana on the call here today, but so you can ask her anything you like about her transition. I think that was all my content for you guys in general. I want you to go away and ask yourself, what does the next step on your journey look like? And we can ask Diana about that as well. Have a little bit of 5 minutes open conversation about what you guys will do next. I want you to write down the next 2 things you're going to do on your journey, basically. Any questions for Diana or for me in the next few minutes? But try and think about, what does this next step look like for you? Has anyone got any thoughts or questions? You're also more than welcome to come and join in with the Go Potato fun as well.
Hannah, I can see one question that showed up in the chat box now by Aika. I think the challenge is accessing platforms, courses that are not in line of your PhD course or project, and as well explaining that to your PI advisors that you're going to spend time on something else that is not going to generate data in line with your PhD. Any advice on that?
I guess I always put this into perspective, I guess. So they don't have control over how you spend all of your time, hopefully. That you could do that in the evenings or the weekends. I did an MBA like on the side for the last 2 years on a Saturday morning, for example. So you might have to take some time out of your schedule, but there are other people that I have worked with who have been able to do this during kind of PhD time. So making sure that your PhD work is really well outlined. It's on a timeline. It's really clear what the deliverables are, and that you are outcome focused rather than time focused. So making sure you're still hitting all of those goals and agreeing that you want to experiment with, sorry, my camera's just gone funny. You want to experiment with some different things, learning different things. So it's all about the story that you're going to tell. So you might find that the thing that you're actually doing will benefit your lab as well. I'm happy to chat more about it specifically, about how you can spin that story if you'd like.
Yeah,
about what your PhD supervisor might be interested in learning as well. Diana, what were you going to say?
No, I was just going to say that I completely agree with what you said, and just wanted to add as well from my experience. Of course, it always helps if your PI is understanding and supportive in terms of taking on other kind of initiatives and side projects outside of your PhD. In my case, I was actually lucky that my PI was quite understanding. But even so, with PhD, one of the good things is that you can be quite flexible with your time management. For example, in certain companies and in industry, sometimes you have to be much more strict regarding the working hours and so on. So I found that quite helpful, that during my PhD, I could actually manage my own time and balance it among my experiments, doing other things as well. So similarly to Hannah, for example, in the last 2 years of my PhD, I did a business course with the Cambridge Church Business School, which was actually aimed exactly at training academics about the entrepreneurship startup world. And this was one of the first experiences when I started learning more about the business world. And actually, I saw that I really enjoyed that, and it inspired me. And from then on, I think it opened my eyes into actually exploring that pathway. And this is how now I ended up as well as a product manager in a biotechnology company.
Amazing. Thanks, Diana. Super inspiring and interesting to learn. Yeah. So I'm just going to go through the start questions that we had at the beginning. So Joanna asked, how can we prepare for an interview in industry, but zero like industry things? So my hot take is that you need to learn how to speak like the people that you're interviewing. So they'll have a different language. Well, it's not like French and Spanish, for example, but like different words that they use, different ways of speaking. And the way that you can pick that up is by just having casual chats with people in industry, asking how they speak about stuff and using that kind of language. It takes a while to bring that in, and just practicing it, asking people for advice to learn how to do that. Basically, practice out loud. I'm happy to help you if you need, so reach out. What does having a PhD set you apart? So Katia asked this. Definitely helps. I think maybe I've helped another friend get a role that is very, very well paid with the amount of experience she has, but because her PhD is so specific to the company that they're working with, they want that expertise. So it can set you apart in terms of knowledge and the amount of time that it takes you to get up to speed with what the company are doing. So definitely sell that. I think, is there any other ones that I missed or any other questions? Okay. What is best time to transition? I said I would talk about this. So in general, you can make up your story work for any time that you want to transition. If you're after, like I said, with that journey of building, you can be like, over my postdoc, I've learned I really like doing these things and that I'm good at these things. So that means I see where I can fit in at this role, because you have these challenges, I have these skills, and therefore we have a magic partnership. That kind of structure works really well. So I wouldn't try and be too worried about what's the best time, unless obviously the best time is always when you feel unhappy and you don't really enjoy what you're doing, in my experience. So until you're not enjoying it or you feel like there's better opportunities, make sure that story fits for your personal time. I think that's my hot take. Obviously, loads more to chat about if you want to. Transitioning from PhD to building a business, I think you just got to do it. Get practicing. But we can also talk about that if you'd like to follow up, because the time is up. But yeah, thank you for spending your time with me today. And Diana, thank you for having me.
Amazing. Well, yeah, thank you so much, Hannah. This was really a wonderful event, and I'm sure everyone in the audience really found it super helpful and inspiring. And I really like that everyone was interacting and engaging in the conversation. You guys have a lot of questions, so please feel free to reach us out, contact Hannah or any of us from the JBR team on our social media channels, and we are happy to help you with any advice or support we can give you. Thank you everyone who attended today's session, and also special thanks to the JBR team members who have been very helpful in putting this event and the program together. And yes, keep an eye please on our social media channels for our next events from this program. There will be also a spoiler alert, one more workshop event with Hannah, so keep an eye for that. And we will see you soon. Thank you.
Thanks everyone, have a great day.
Thank you.